So now what? We've got three of the best political minds in the business joining me for a look ahead, big picture in terms of what all this means. CNN senior political analyst Gloria Borger, Republican strategist Alex Castellanos, and New York Daily News columnist Errol Louis, also morning host for WWRL Radio here in New York. Welcome to everybody. Alex, let me just read you what Michael Grunwald, this is in Time magazine, wrote today about the Georgia race. He said, quote, "A Martin surprise in this deep red state would be a crowning embarrassment for the GOP. It would rival Obama's own victory as a repudiation of the Bush agenda." Do you agree with that, Alex? What does a loss down in Georgia mean for the Republican Party?
Well, I don't know if people have heard, but Republicans haven't had a particularly good year so far. So I don't think that, you know, the house is kind of already burned down. Burning down the few remaining timbers is not really big news. Look, this 60 votes is the magic numbers, but in fact, the Democrats are pretty close to 60 votes already. There are very few votes in the Senate where you don't pick off a Northeastern Republican, where you don't get a Republican to cross over. So I don't think this is quite as important in the Senate as it might be portrayed, I think, in that article.
And Gloria, does he have a point there? I mean, do they really need a supermajority?
No.
I mean, because Chambliss looks like he, at least at this stage, they're feeling pretty good about what may happen in Georgia, and Minnesota's still up in the air.
Look, and it's a good line for Saxby Chambliss to use to say, I'm the one between you and Barack Obama and a Democratic Senate, so I don't blame him for using it. But as Alex was saying, you've got a couple of senators, for example, in Maine, very moderate Republican senators, one of whom just won re-election, one of the rare Republicans to coast to an easy re-election, Susan Collins in Maine. And I think you're going to see them voting with the Democrats an awful lot of the time here anyway. So while 60 is kind of the magic number, they'll be able to work around that pretty well.
Errol, your take on this, and I just want to mention, too, let me ask you this. You know, there were some big names that went down to campaign. I mean, from Rudy Giuliani, Mike Huckabee, Sarah Palin, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, all down there campaigning. But Obama didn't go.
Right.
Is he going to get any flack if Martin doesn't pull it out for not being a part of this?
Listen, the president-elect was handling some fairly important things like organizing a response to the biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression.
Okay, fair point. I'll give you that one.
And those were problems that would have his name on it unmistakably. Look, the way he campaigned and his legislative agenda, he's made clear he's not trying to be partisan. He doesn't need those 60 votes. He's not looking to cram an agenda past a recalcitrant Republican minority. So, you know, it wouldn't make sense for him to drop all of the very pressing things that he has to do just to win this one seat, to implement a legislative strategy that he's shown he has no interest in. He's really not trying to run a partisan agenda.
Campbell, go ahead.
One thing I might point out, though, yes, he's decided to remain president-elect and not revert to partisan political candidates. Smart move. Protect his stature, which is what he needs to govern. But just because he didn't go to Georgia doesn't mean he wasn't there. He has a list of 10, 11 million names on an email list. That's 20,000 names per congressional district in Georgia. He's used it. He has cashed in some political capital, so he's there.
All right, guys, stand by, because we got a lot more we're going to talk about with the panel coming up in just a second. And we will, as we said, have those latest results for you. We'll put them up on the screen as they come in. 19% in now. Chambliss still has a 2-to-1 lead, 65% to 35%. Another major story developing tonight, though, of course, the Detroit automakers' brand new bailout plans arrive on Capitol Hill. They want about $25 billion. Ali Velshi checking under the hood for specifics. He's going to join me next. Also, the reconciler-in-chief reaches out to governors of both parties. Stay tuned for what happened when Barack Obama shared the room with Sarah Palin today. And did you hear the latest hurdle for Hillary Clinton? A conservative group has found a reason she should not be Secretary of State. They say it defies the Constitution. We will explain.
As president, I'm not simply asking the nation's governors to help implement our economic plan. I'm going to be interested in you helping to draft and shape that economic plan. My attitude is that if we're listening to the governors, then the money that we spend is going to be well spent. And it means that it's going to get working faster, and the people in your states are going to experience prosperity sooner.
Prosperity, a great goal, but these days people are struggling just to stay afloat. And today, the nation's governors got their turn to ask Barack Obama for a helping hand. The president-elect was the featured speaker at their annual conference, but he didn't come with a blank check. And back now to talk it out, Gloria Borger, Alex Castellanos, and Errol Louis all joining me again. And Gloria, you know, so many of those governors going to Obama, going to the federal government, hat in hand. So far, as we were just talking about, though, with Ali Velshi, nothing the government is doing seems to be having a real effect in terms of easing us out of the sort of crisis mode that we're in. There's literally no time for a transition here to a new president. I mean, what are you hearing from your sources about how Obama's team is coping and how they're setting priorities? You know,
Campbell, when we go back and we look at the first 100 days, as we inevitably will, we're going to think that the first 100 days began a couple of weeks ago. That, in fact, as you're right, there is no transition. And what the Obama folks are thinking about, look, trying to create an opportunity for Obama to lead as a result of this crisis. And they're thinking, okay, how do we do that? What's enough to stimulate the economy? Do we do a large stimulus package, which I believe they will do, that will include the middle-class tax cuts? Then do they come up with a plan for energy, for reform, an energy program, and a health care program that they can implement perhaps incrementally, but at least outline the larger plan? They don't want to have happen to them what happened in the Clinton administration, which is all these internal arguments about, oh, which do you go with first, welfare reform or health care reform? They don't want to do that. They want to have a plan from day one, and day one started a couple weeks ago.
It did. And Alex, Republicans have been surprisingly cooperative during the transition so far. I mean, praising cabinet picks. They seem very willing in a lot of ways to give the new administration a honeymoon period. Is this a function of how critical a moment we're facing?
I think it's absolutely, you know, Republicans are for good government, too. Don't forget. We're Americans as well. But it's also smart politics. You know, at the end of the day, right now, we all want this president to be successful. The economic house is burning down. We don't want partisan politics, now the firemen fighting. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be the Republican who made it impossible for Barack Obama to succeed. That's not a politically tenable position.
Now, one thing, though, there are some Republicans out there still spoiling for a fight, I think a little bit, Errol, on certain issues. Most likely Target. It's come up in a number of areas. Is Eric Holder, Obama's pick for Attorney General. He was Deputy Attorney General under Clinton, and he was involved in the decision to pardon fugitive financier Mark Rich, which some people think was a controversial decision, very controversial decision. Karl Rove brought this up this morning on the Today Show. Let's listen to what he said.
He's the #2 guy at the Justice Department, having private conversations with the representatives of a fugitive, you know, on the number 10 list, and didn't even tell the investigating agencies within Justice Department or the Pardons Office that he was having these conversations.
You think he'll be?
So what do you think? How big an issue is this for Holder and by extension, how for Obama?
I love that it's Karl Rove bringing this up. I mean, Karl Rove and a number of other Bush senior administration officials will be lucky to leave town without their own pardons. You know, I mean, I think there's going to be a question, and I'll agree with Alex, that I don't think anybody in the first 100 days is going to want to be seen as trying to stop this president and this administration from getting the country back on track. The surest way, I think, to be tagged with, you know, partisan politics, going back to gridlock, is to try and bring up some grudge from 8 years ago that really has no legal meaning. The pardon is a done deal. Now, if you want to try to sort of resurrect the partisan wars with the Clintons from 8 years ago, you know, good luck with that. I don't think that's a sound strategy for Republicans.
Gloria, go ahead.
I think it's a completely legitimate issue for people to want to raise. In fact, the Obama folks went around to Republicans on Capitol Hill before even nominating Eric Holder and asked them whether this Mark Rich pardon was going to hold up Eric Holder and whether it raised so many red flags that he could possibly not be confirmed. Obviously, the answers they got back were enough to have him be nominated. But is it a legitimate question to raise? Absolutely. Do I believe Eric Holder will get confirmed? Yes, I do.
Alex, real quick, the last word on this. Is it an issue?
Of course, it's an issue, but as long as you debate it on its merit, I mean, this is governing, this is not politics. Was undue influence applied here? So yes, it's a fair issue, but again, Republicans ought to do this by helping Barack Obama. Look, we want him to get the best people. We want to get people who are not going to undermine the success of this administration. This is not politics. This is about governing.
All right, guys. Gloria, Alex, and Errol, many, many thanks. Appreciate it. Another quick update on the Georgia Senate runoff. 30% of the vote now in. Senator Chambliss leads 64 to 36%. A winner later tonight. We'll have the results right here on CNN. Coming up, a terrorist talks. Only one of the Mumbai attackers is still alive. Officials say he is spilling the secrets of that deadly plot. And then later, could Hillary Clinton's nomination as Secretary of State be derailed before the Senate even gets to vote on it? Some conservatives say it is a full-on constitutional crisis.